Om Tad Vidhi Pranipatena Paripashyena Sevaya Upadekshanti Te Jnana Jnaninas Tattvadarshinaha. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Om Apiyantu Mamangani Vak Pranaschakshuhu Shrotramatur Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Mahabrahma Nirakuryam Mama Brahma. Nirakarora Nirakaranamasva Nirakaranam Meastu. Taratmani Nirate Ya Upanishatsu Dharmaste. Mai Shantu Te Mai Shantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Dhanur Grahitva Upanishadam Mahastram Sharam Hupasanishita Sandhyayita Ayamya Tad Bhavakatena Chitasha Laksham Tadevaksharam Somya Vidhi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Taking as bow that mighty weapon furnished by the Upanishads and other non-dual scriptures of India, fastened to it the arrow of mind, made sharpened by thoughts on reality alone. Then pulling full strength, O student, release and penetrate that mark, the imperishable Brahman. May our bodies experience great health. May our life force flow unimpeded. May our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman. For the Upanishads state that all existence is Brahman. Therefore, may we never deny Brahman, and may Brahman never deny us. May there be no rejection ever by us of Brahman. We who are dedicated to the realization of the Atman within. May all the divine statements spoken in the Upanishads also resound within us. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishovahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, divine reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. And may Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. It is the month of May in 2021, and we are gathered at the ashram here in Portland, Oregon, where I have missed all of you over this long year or more of problems with the pandemic, but nevertheless, we're here to spread Dharma, not COVID, and we want to spread it not just by way of a Paravid, but by way of Paravid. That is not just the lower truth that people are obsessed with, as we were just hearing about in the readings of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, that worldly turn of mind that people give themselves to so willingly, which is okay except for the one in front of the zeros, as he used to say. Have to make sure that that pillar of Brahman consciousness that we were just chanting about from the Upanishads is run deep into the underground mud bank of the mind, like a pylon into the bay in San Francisco. We were watching them drive those deep, deep into support the New Bay Bridge some years ago. So we want to make sure that that pillar of non-duality is driven deep into the subconscious mind so that we always remember our true nature. And that's what the Upanishads are speaking about all the time. Just chanted that. Upanishadam Mahastram. Maha means great, of course, you know that. So the great Upanishads speak about this timeless essence. It's both timeless and ancient. If you speak about the timeless side of it, then you're talking about divine reality or truth. We can call it Satyam. Akhanda Satchidananda, the eternal indestructible being that resides equally in quantity and in quality throughout all souls. Only difference is the degree of realization or not of certain beings that have reached a higher state by listening to the words of the Upanishads. Sarvam Brahmau Upanishadam. They always talk about Brahman. All, sarva, all the time. So that's what we're here today to listen to, this great voice. You have to sort of imagine it as a huge pool, saram Upishanashita. So this huge pool of potential vibration that's tended by this great progenitress of power, of Vakdevi, power of the word, which we pay deference and reverence to here in SRV. Always looking deep into the nature of the word, which we will do some more with this new Upanishad we're taking up, the Amrita-Nada. Amrita means nectar of truth. And Nada, of course, is that what is to be heard, the sound Brahman, they call that. The word, the Vak and the Vakdevi who tends it. So you have to imagine that there's this huge pool that's forming into one great river out of one side of this great lake. And this forms into a river, and that river flows and turns into different tributaries and smaller streams, and then enters into the sea. So that meditating upon that one ocean of consciousness, indivisible, boundless, timeless, spaceless, then the mind becomes like it. It expands. May our minds expand in their ability or capacity to know Brahman. And that takes away all these problems that people are so worried and concerned about, obsessed with even. And makes the mind centered and peaceful. As she said, Holy Mother, my Guru's Guru, you need peace of mind first and foremost. So if you court that, then you quickly come to equanimity of mind and get into sthiti samadhi, a steady, unalterable and irrefutable and impregnable steadiness of mind. No vibration. Like this. See, or maybe you can even see it here. Just see tracers. You see firebrand, it's called in the Upanishads. That's what we're going to be studying a little today. If you, like a kid with a sparkler at night, you see these nice tracers there. And shaking of the firebrand is a powerful teaching in the Upanishads. And this Upanishad we're about to study, Amrita-Nada, is starting out in its very first sloka that way. That the shaking of the firebrand is equated with, well, Atma Vichara, who am I? You wouldn't know it to read about it in the Upanishad or in the great commentaries by beings like Gaudapada, which we'll look at a little bit today. But nonetheless, it's what they're talking about in terms of shaking the firebrand is vibrating the vijnana, the mind, the intellect. Everyone's vibrating the intellect. If the intellect is pure and high-minded, then those vibrations come out to be very beneficial for the world. But if not, then all sorts of vibrations are, as you know, entering into the world scene and mixed and of negative propensities. And so we have to go about guarded. Not just with a mask on, as I'm seeing all of you in front of me right now, this time, but also we have to have this, what I like to call a mental immune system. If you live as a yogi then, or yogini, then you're impervious to all of this naturally, and if it comes, no big deal. It's even up to death, no big deal. You just stand fearless, steady, in the truth of eternal life. So that word, eternal or timeless, is what the Upanishads focus upon most of all. If you talk about it as ancient, then you're talking about time, of course. But even there, India has the highest look at time, basically because it's in the mind. And it's flowing in the mind, and that's a vibration of the buddhi, that's a shaking of the firebrand, you see. The great mind is also shaking at its firebrand, as it were. And powerful intellects are thinking great thoughts. And if they come here to earth like Swami Vivekananda did recently, he's seen as the Buddha incarnate in this age now, and also Lord Shiva in the body. So if he comes and thinks great thoughts here, then a lot of people get benefited by that. And these aren't beings that the media is focusing upon, so you're not going to find them being championed by people who think in terms of worldly thoughts and so forth. They're taking things that are unnecessary and promoting them for the senses to either gloat on or be averse to. But these great souls, their thoughts, he said, are going out into the atmosphere. It's a vibration, but it started internal as eternal, and then it became ancient, and then it became voiced, and it worked its way down to the external vibration, and now it's affecting us. You see, we're hearing it, shruti. First hear it, shravana. Shruti, shravana, must be heard. And once it's heard, then if your intellect is vibrating in a refined way, then you immediately know the truth. Samadhi is a matter of immediate purpose. And it's not a matter like the blue lotus, you see, it opens when everything is just fine. But as soon as a cloud goes in front of the sun, it can't bear that, so it shrinks away, you see. So you have to be that fearless, that strong, that bold, that steady, in the face of all this unnecessary and unreal, as Gaudapada calls it, shaking of millions of firebrands, millions of minds vibrating in various ways all around you. And Swamiji said, you must come to America and see these people, he wrote back to his monk brothers. They're still just babies, spiritually. They have great advancement in science and materialism, but they're still just babies spiritually, so you're going to have to look upon them and teach them lessons about the eternal truth, the Sanatana Dharma of India. And so that's why we must listen very closely to these voices of the rishis. It's not a foreign religion. All religion is indigenous in the soul. So in this case, it's the clarion call. It's the most pure voice of the children of the Divine Mother who are speaking this from age to age, and even from century to century, if you can follow. Hard to follow right now. And I was thinking that as I was on the plane flying here yesterday, in a red eye, they call it. I call it the single eye, but they call it the red eye. But flying here, and everyone had masks on the plane, you see. So I was thinking that while they're really having a hard time, with their intelligence today, because truth should be obvious. They should be living in bliss and peace all the time. There should be no reason why you should lose your peace of mind whatsoever, because that's on the eternal side of things. But if you put a mask on, then you're losing another, 19% of your intelligence, they say, because you're not getting any oxygen to your brain. So that's actually a study recently. So they put a mask on and some old people are playing checkers or something, or bingo or whatever, and they just can't figure out the game because no oxygen's getting in. I said, well, let's take the mask off. Don't tell anyone, but we'll take the mask off here, and then let's play bingo. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the game, everyone's thinking right again. So breath, oxygen, pranayama, which this Upanishad is about to speak of, as one of the 6 elements of Sadanga yoga. We know Ashtanga yoga, some of us. Most of us just in the West are just fixated with Hatha, but Ashtanga yoga is 8-limbed, but Sadanga yoga is the yoga that the Upanishads teach. It's called Sadanga, 6-limbed. And so the first part of that is breathing. So it follows the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad that we studied in Seattle here some years ago. That if you're born and Brahman, fine. Just pass your time contentedly and be free. Let the body have its prarabdha karma and return to Brahman. No, that's the best way to do it. Come with a pure mind. Come into the body with an already pure mind. But if not, then it's called practice, and that's where yoga comes in. Vedanta is already truth. Yoga is a practice that you have to do. I mean, yoga as practice is a practice you have to do. Yoga as union, of course, is that same goal. So if you have to practice, then you start out with breathing, which means you don't have to practice truthfulness, you don't have to practice nonviolence, you don't have to practice not coveting other people's goods, you don't have to practice satyam, you don't have to practice moderation and all of that, because you came with it. Those limbs are already in you, and you're already a good, moral, upright, steady, straight soul who sees through the appearances of things and always knows the truth of the matter. But if you're having a problem with that, as people are in the Kali Yuga, we call this 4th Yuga, then they start you out with breathing. Even the Buddhists do that when they come. So, let's start you out with learning how to breathe again. And sometimes that doesn't go very far. You have to connect it with more meaningful things, like your in-breath, your held breath, and your out-breath. Okay, Puraka, Rechaka, Kumbhaka, Rechaka. Okay, I know all that. They're even going to mention this in the Upanishad that I have to remind myself to get to here. But that breathing process, they'll just kind of leave it at that. Oh, watch your breath, watch your breath. No, watch it and then connect it to where it comes from. Because that's that energy that comes from the mind that's causing you to shake the firebrand or not. Or, you could say, is allowing you to control when you shake the firebrand and when you don't. It's just not all a matter of detachment. It's also a matter of attaching at the right time and detaching at will. And it's not all a matter of just renunciation, because renunciation isn't just condemning something, it's deifying it. See, like Sri Ramakrishna, reading about in the Gospel, he deified everything. So he wasn't condemning things. So all of those, it's a matter of divine will. If you can connect yourself to the divine will, we call that Shakti, or Divine Mother, then you're already a kitten, you see, protected by the mother cat. But the mouse doesn't get protected by the mother cat, you see. The mouse's case, lips are drawn, and teeth are there, claws are out, you see. So that's what people are suffering in the world. They're trying to learn from the world mother. But if you're trying to learn from the Divine Mother, then you become one of her kittens. See, Ramakrishna used to say one of her monkeys, you see, that cling to her, won't let go. Or the kitten just helplessly mews until mother comes back, just stays where it is, just cries ma, 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 mew, mew, mew. And then she comes and takes, like a child crying, mother will always come and take the child in her arms. So with the Shakti path, or the path of those who realize the Divine Mother, as was also the path of the great non-dualists like Gaudapada, we have Shakta Advaita Vada as a path. That's actually known in India and not so much here in the West. But there's a way of fusing this great power of dynamism that's all around us and it's operating everything by connecting ourselves with it. And then connecting that to Brahman. See? Vachum nyachat mani tam yacha Budao diyam yacha cha buddhi sakshini tam chapi nirmatmani nirvikalpe parmam bhajasva vilapya shantim. So Shankara says, all these words, all these sounds, all these vibrations that are coming from the shaking of different intellects, different minds, different egos, that's all in one compartment. All of this you must connect it to the word. Let's just call it the word. And then you just got to connect it to the mind. That's an inward process through nadis, through channels that you don't see. Just like you don't see channels here in your body unless you dissect them. But the kind of dissection you need to do is this Atma-vichara. Where is the source? And this is all the effect of the cause. And pretty soon I'll find out that even the cause isn't the real cause. That there's a causeless cause somewhere. An unstruck sound somewhere. And that's peace. That's where peace resides. And I need to be with it all the time and court it every day if I never lose it again, whether I'm in a body or not. So connect the word to the mind to the intellect to the ego, and then the ego to the witness. Sakshi Bhutam. Buddhao diyam cha buddhi sakshini. So Buddhao, intelligence, sakshini, the witness. Connect it to the witness, and then you're safe. You can now look both outward and inward. And then if you can look both outward and inward, because inward's not open to most people nowadays, because they haven't opened the channels to it. Well, the seers are living inward, and then just kind of appearing outward. But the worldly are living outward and trying to see what's inward, maybe. Give them credit for it. But if you can then see two things, you can render them into one. In the meantime, it's a green coconut kind of oneness, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say. I say, oh yes, it's all one, the green coconut. See, but it's not ripe yet. See? So people have this idea of a kind of oneness that's just very immature. It's all based on external things, on causes and effects. And it may be a good start, but it's not going to take you very deep, as I said. So you realize when that coconut ripens, it's got five layers inside of it. And there's something rattling around inside, finally. See, it's something that's detached from the 5 layers. The Atman's in there, and it's covered itself with these 5 things: body, energy, mind, intellect, and ego. But it's not those things. And so if you come to a realization through maturity of that analytical process, Atma-vichara, then you've seen through the outer into the inner. And now you can take them both and render them into one indivisible state. And then there's the key, you see. Now you're safe. Witness was fairly safe, but there was a chance that you might drift outward again. And now you know that there's no outward and no inward. As my teacher used to love to quote in Tibetan Buddhism, Janggang Khantrul Rinpoche used to say, there's no nirvana there to attain. There's no samsara here to renounce. So prior to that, you're thinking there's somewhere to go, and you're almost falling into the hands of the dualists, like fundamentalist Christians and so forth. Oh, I'm going to heaven somewhere, and maybe it's out there. I would say, well, if you're going to heaven somewhere, at least go inward for it. because that's what where Jesus told you it is. So, you could be really headed in the wrong direction. Let's change the trajectory here, go inward, find heaven, and then transcend it. Because Upanishad and Mahastram, the Upanishads were always saying that we entertained the heaven-aspiring senses by fixing them on the gods, and we found that it was all inside of us. There was nothing outside of any value, nothing whatsoever. It was all the shaking of the firebrand. And it was fruitless. It had no essence to it. And it took us on this wheel of thousands of lifetimes, thousands of dream lifetimes. And you think that's not possible because you've only got 4 billion years of time to look back on, if that. But you're not looking back for those lifetimes. You're looking inward for them. If they are all dreams, then you probably had 100 of them last night. Well, who were you last night? Swapna vichara. See, I must analyze vichara, the swapna state, my dream state. Because that's the internal state, isn't it? The kingdoms of heaven are within you means all heaven is within you, actually. And you visit it every night. So these are just plain obvious truths to the Vedantas, to the Buddhists and the Sufis and so forth. They're just plain obvious truths. We accept that. Now, what's next, you see? But people are stumbling on these simple truths and suffering because of it. And then karma's coming. Have you seen the world burning lately? I mean, the media has some benefit to us. And my students in Delhi, go ask them how things are. Not enough wood to burn all the bodies. So, the great Upanishads then, Upanishadam Mahastram, Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. We're going to look into one of those today, and I've deliberated back and forth, as Vivekananda used to say, I've essayed, and I finally made my conclusion that I wasn't going to pass you out the Upanishad printed out. A lot of these minor Upanishads, you can't really find them, but you pass one of these papers to the Westerner, it either ends up collecting dust somewhere on their shelves, or they lose it. You have to print them out another one 2 months later, or they go off half-cocked all over it. They should be following the teacher's sloka to sloka, and they've already read the whole thing and think they know it. They don't even know the first word about it yet, because we're all babies. We have to be submit to taught, Vivekananda said. So you spend 30, 40, 50 years like I have studying them, 60, 70, 80 like my teachers studied them, in one lifetime alone, then maybe you can bring them out, dust them off, read them, and they'll make some sense to you. So I decided not to give you any printed paper this time. You just listen to what I say. Tell me what I say, as they say in the rock songs, right? So then, if you are convinced of the truth, then come and ask me, can I have a printed copy of that? So this is my new solution, you see, after teaching here in Portland for, 30 years or something, in the 4th location we've had here. I'm not giving up on Portland. Even in its condition lately, you see, we've managed to keep some lovers of the Dharma together in a handful. Changing faces a lot, some people coming, some going, some staying, some leaving, some returning, going on, and that's to be expected today in this times. But so you just listen to these as I read them to you. If you find out that you really want to do your own manana, roll it around your mind, savor it. After you've heard the teachings, then I'll give you a printed copy, because you won't be able to find this anywhere. It's my own version, along with Narayana Swami Iyer, who has put out an English translation that I've changed to make more sense to us. So this is called the Amrita-Nada Upanishad. And where are you in the world of the Upanishads? You're about right, those star maps, where are you? Somewhere in space. In the Upanishadic world, you're right about there. Ding. Let's see. Yajurveda, and it has 51 Upanishads in it, of 108 that are left in this world. And then there's 10 in the Rig Veda, and then here you've got 16 in the Samaveda, and the Atharva Veda has 31. So this is how they divide it up now. Actually, I got this out of an old Upanishad, and there's also a list of this, I think, in the Puranas too. But basically, all the ones that are underlined here, if you want to come up and look at this later, are the ones that Shankara got to in his 32 years of life. It was in about 700 AD, this full incarnation of Lord Shiva came, and his birthday is usually this month. Now I think because of the lunar calendar it's on the 7th of July, but Lord Buddha happens on the full moon this month, his birthday, and then Shankara always happens right around him, as if the two are saying the same thing. Buddhism and Vedanta is saying really much the same thing. And so inside of that period, our father of Vedanta, called Vedavyas, had saved 108 Upanishads at one point in time, because there are probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them. The rishis, who, interesting fact, that produced these were householders, not monks, most of them. Or they had reached a monk stage in their life, and a stage where they decided to write them down, because before that, you would just be sitting here, I'd be reciting some things, and you'd be repeating them to me, and then you'd go home and memorize them, come back the next day and recite them back to me. So the Upanishads were just given that way. This sort of reminds me of my musical career, where I was taught how to play music, right, and cello. And so I got to play that. And then one day my teacher takes the music away. Okay, play it. You've been looking at it for 2 years. Haven't you got it by memory yet? So, but in India it's just like, listen to this, you see. Play the Bansuri flute, play it back. You adjust your tone, you adjust your breath, you adjust various things. And you never saw a piece of music, you see. So in India they did it that way. It's kind of that way with the scriptures. You know, here, listen to this, repeat it, adjust your intonation here and so forth, and now here's the meaning, and now go and meditate on it. Manana Shavana Manana Nidijasana, this is how they got realization. And people nowadays, like some of the young people that I've come across, and says, well, that's old. And I'd say, you mean ancient or timeless? Let me tell you the difference and how both of them are effective. But old is good, you see. I would say that, right, because now I'm 71, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but I still feel like, a young yogi inside, don't get me wrong. But this entertaining in the mind of the Upanishads is just, talking about time, it brings about the eternal moment, because there's past, and there's present, and there's future. Trikala, Shiva's Trikala Darshi, he sees all three phases of time. And some people have tried to one-upmanship that. They say, well, I live in the present. I say, well, I live in the eternal moment. And they, what's that, you see? Well, the present is a mode of time, and it passes. And then people enter the next present moment, and it's all about enjoyment. They're not using that present moment to be there, you see. They're using it to get something, or lose something, right? And that's the problem with the present. You're actually in the experience of getting and losing all the time. So it's not the eternal moment. If you're in the eternal moment, then you're poised in the eternal. And that's all she wrote. The Divine Mother will not write anything more in the Book of Destiny. Holy Mother said that. She can erase what she wrote. She writes something for you, like, oh, he will die at a certain month in a certain year, in the COVID era of the Kali Yuga or whatever, you see. Oh, Mother, please. I've realized how important it is. I have to hear more of the Upanishads. I have to meditate more. So can I have more time? Oh, okay. So she turns it and raises it back, you see. And you get another, what was it, flood of days? Remember that teaching, flood of days? Where does that come from?
The sun's.
Yeah, what Upanishad? We just studied it. Akshi Upanishad, yes. So Akshi means here, Akshatam, you see. So my third eye is Akshatam, see. And so I live there, you see, that witness consciousness. So Samkriti, remember him? Because when we studied all of these underlined ones, most of them we've studied together. What I was saying, Shankara commented on them in his 32 years of existence. And then there's a bunch of minor Upanishads, you see, that some of them don't even have English translations yet. So, or reliable ones. So basically then the other Upanishads we've looked into, and some of them are listed here. Like the one just before the Amrita-Nada was the Amrita Bindu. We studied that in San Francisco. Remember when Babaji was running the center there. There's the Akshi Upanishad that you just mentioned. And that's all about the sun god, you see. Some Kriti said, where do I go for light? I want to really clarify the old wisdom. So he shut his eyes. He didn't run out the front door. He shut his eyes and went to the source of light. Well, that sounds like Surya to me, the sun, you see. How about the moon? It shines by borrowed light. It's okay, you see, but I'd rather go to the sun god. So I'll go to Surya Narayan. So he went and found Surya Narayan and talked with him. So the whole Upanishad is like that. It's like the Katha Upanishad. He goes to death. His father says, I give you to death. It's because he was mad at him. It's kind of curse in the old days. I give you to death. It's like saying go to hell nowadays. Because there is no death in India, so you can't really be much of a curse when you know there's no such thing as death. But there, then he went to find Yama. Oh, my father said I must go to death, so where's Yama? So he goes, meditates on Yama, and finds him, asks him about what's beyond you. And Yama said, no, nobody can know that. So pretty soon, Nachiketas, this young man, convinces him that he's qualified to know what's beyond death before he dies. And it's a beautiful Upanishad, a favorite of a lot of scholars as well as beginners. So it's sort of like that in the Akshi Upanishad. You go to the sun god. And so there's always some rishi who's tracing his family line. And you don't trace that back in time. You trace that back beyond time. See, it's in a timeless moment where all of that's stored. Everything is there. Your ancestors, it's like seeds in a forest. They're buried. You know, generations of forests are just hiding under the soil a few inches. So that's the way you have to think about the Upanishads and their wisdom, pregnant with wisdom like that. Just take a little water and water a certain area and watch it flourish. And you'll find it all in your own self. You might start out thinking it's outside of me, like in a book or in a scripture, but in books and temples, vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. So cease lament. Let go thy hold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. So you bring everything current like that. Take it outside the auspice of the brooding mind and the selfish ego. These are mere petty potentates. You see, they're trying to ruin everything for you. But you just need to bring them into control and focus them and rein them in. And we'll look deeply at that next weekend when we do that retreat on Ashtanga Yoga. But now it's time for Sadanga Yoga. So let's look into Sadanga Yoga with some of these slokas. Now, I think I've said enough about this, just usually flash this, but except for the fact that to put an exclamation point on it from the standpoint of Swami Vivekananda, let's read that top quote. And since the live streaming audience, welcome to all of you. Some of them, my students back in Hawaii. I made it safely, by the way. I'm here. Although I had to come through hell to get here. You don't go to hell if you're an illumined soul. You go through hell. You don't have to go to hell. So you just have to make your way, see suffering everywhere, see, and try and transform it into nectar. Shiva does that. Well, here's how Swami Vivekananda put it. It puts an accent on what, who you are. Maybe this is you. Sober-minded beings have become disgusted with their superstitious religions and are looking to India for new light. Remember, Buddha is also from India. How eagerly they take in any little bit of the grand thoughts of the holy Vedas, which resist and are unharmed by the terrible onslaughts of modern science. The theories of creation out of nothing, a created soul, of a big tyrant of a god sitting on a throne in a place called heaven, and of eternal hellfires have disgusted the educated. And the noble thoughts of the Vedas about the eternity of creation and of the soul, they are imbibing fast in one shape or another. So, does that describe you? 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, when I was 20, when I heard the Upanishads, and so, ding, there it was, you see. Found it. Just really horrible that it took me 19 years to do so, you see. But it took Shankar 5, and he was spouting scripture by the time he was 6. And had recalled it all, you see, because it's all within you. It's not something you can go find somewhere, like in books and temples or in pilgrimage places. It's all in you. You have to find some way to accent, and then go to books and temples and have it corroborated. Hear it from the lips of an illumined preceptor, and, you know, ding, wake up. Wake up to the eternal truth, which is your essential nature. So that's what I found as a quote from Swamiji, we call him, for this list of Upanishads. And all we need to go, now you've digested your first Babaji chart already. And I can take you straight into the confines of the Upanishad. Let's see here what it says. Amrita-Nada. So Amrita, nectar, sometimes I even call that a drop of nectar. Just that'll make a man out of a god out of a man, and make a goddess out of a woman. Just one drop of Amrit, because Rita was the oldest word in any language we have for truth. So, lovely Rita, we like to call her. Most of you are too young for the Beatles, I guess. Lovely Rita, Meter Maid, was that song. So, lovely Amrita, we say in Vedanta, that drop of nectar, see. And nada, sound, vibration, channels, nadis that are atrophied, or, like stepping on a hose. No water gets through it. Misaligned spine, no energy gets through it. Bad food. No breathing. Those are all different levels of crimped up nadis. And when people get healthy again, they just open them up back to their natural state, you see. It wasn't any miracle. You could do it easy. So it's easy to actually get that kind of freedom. The hard freedom is what they give up on. See? That's opening up these nadis, so that you don't brood anymore, you don't worry anymore, you don't stress anymore. In fact, it's the opposite way. You're just attracted to the sound of truth. So what's that? What'd you say? Oh, sorry, I was looking outward. Look inward. What's that you say? Sun God? What's that you say? Death? What are you telling me? Or Divine Mother? Nada, Amrita-Nada Upanishad. Upanishad, interesting word. Upanishad. Sometimes they say, I think it was Swami Nikhilananda, maybe he had heard it from one of his teachers, but basically, Upa is the teacher, and Sat, truth, Ni, a knot. You see. So that teacher that comes along and unties the knots of your mind for you, Upanishad, is one way you could describe that word. And so basically, let me take you here first. Before I introduce you even to the first sloka, is it? No, let's go ahead and read the first sloka. So the whole thing starts out what you just chanted. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Punaktu. Oh, these peace chants open up every Upanishad and end every Upanishad. There's 7 of them. And I did print those out for you. So I know I'm going to get to the retreat next week and you're going to go, forgot mine, or I lost it, or it's under a pile of dust somewhere. But you should be looking at these every day and memorizing them. How many have the 7 peace chants memorized? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. And more people around, my students around the world, have memorized these 7 now. So that's so that you can not just say, I memorized it, you see, as a matter of pride or something, but say, so that you can look at them inside of yourself and chant them. Not just so they'll come to your aid when you're having problems, either, but so that they can be a source of inspiration for you eternally. See, all you have to do is just think about them, and the mind just, if you've conditioned the mind that way, or unconditioned it, as the case may be, your mind will just soar, like the great swan. Soar like the great swan. See, it's the handshake, right? Your founder, like Six and I used to do. So if you put these 2 together like that with your friend's hand, you see it makes a head of a swan and the wings and so forth. And you start really down low. You have to bend down to the ankle. Soar with the great swan. You take it up above the head and down the other side. So whenever we saw each other, we do the great swan handshake. And the great swan, of course, is the Hamsa, Paramahamsa, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. But I digress in a nice way. Where I was this first sloka. So it starts out with the peace chant, and then the first sloka is, the wise, having studied the Shastras, scriptures, and reflected on them again and again, and having come to know Brahman, should abandon them all like a firebrand. So I'll read you some slokas out of Gaudapada's 4th section of Karika soon about the firebrand and what he says about it. So I wrote this Upanishad, I read this Upanishad as I was looking through all 108 of them that I had printed out on my printer. How can I teach, which one can I teach in Portland? Because we've done the Akshi and so I'm looking for Upanishads that are 30 slokas or less. Some of them are like hundreds of slokas long, so we wouldn't have time to do them. So this one came up with its 36 slokas. And so that gets you to this essential hearing of a Shastra, to Shravana, to actually hear it once in your lifetime. And then hopefully you'll meditate on it. So having studied the Shastras again and again, they look at them again and again, and through them they come to know about Brahman. Then they abandon them all as a firebrand. So it's like, say, you pick it up, you read it, you memorize it, you put it down. And you realize it was all in you already. And all of that outer stuff was just kind of a journey you made, sort of a dream journey to remind yourself or others. And it was all worthy, noble, but you're getting to the point of it all. And therefore, it's a tried and true path that every soul that comes to earth who is in the know of the Upanishads, the noble Vedas, as he says here, will do this to remind themselves. And those who remind themselves and awake right away, see, it's like on first hearing. And the Upanishad says this, is the reason, the use for pratyahara, what pratyahara is, right? Fifth limb of yoga is to take your mind off of objects and, be able to detach so that you can get concentration. People are trying to concentrate before they have the ability to detach from things. It's not going to work, folks. But we keep telling them this, but they won't listen. So you have to go through these stages and really master them so you can get to that concentration. And once you get to it, it'll never leave you. It's there for all times. And that's that's the requisite to yoga. Not twisting your body into some shape or huffing and puffing your lungs like a pair of bellows. That's not going to get you anywhere. Or having children, see, or any of that. You should have gotten this concentration first thing. Your parents should have taught you this, because then you just cruise through life. Nothing would daunt you. Like Swami Vivekananda, you just cruise through life. Nothing would get you down, and you just be even-minded all the time. Come delusion, come illusion, come death, as the song says in India. I've tied mother to a tuft of my hair, you see. Now she's always on my mind. So, whatever may come, I'm steady in that, you see. So, this recitation of the Upanishads it's interesting because the next slokas are about, the parts of the mantra. So how am I, if I don't have time to do the Upanishads and study all that, then we better give them a mantra quick. So we'll dumb down, as it were. Let's use the word condense. Condense down everything in the Upanishads to one little sentence, you see, full of power. Give that to them quick, you see, while they're not looking. See? And release this atom of knowledge in their mind, you see. There are different kinds of atoms and particles than most people are obsessed with out here. I'm going to give them this volatile, acid-like, tiny bit of truth, Amrit, and put it into their nadas, into their nadis, into their channels, and just watch that open them up. We may have to watch, 20, 30, 40, 50 years today for that. But there was a time when it happened in a day. Even sometimes, in some cases, the minute the Guru spoke the Mahavakya, the great saying to the student, it's like, pow, it's vaulted. I am transported in ecstasy, as your founder said, Lex Ixon. I got transported in ecstasy just by hearing that again in this lifetime, you see. It was so powerful and pregnant to me in the last lifetime. I just needed to find someone to speak it to me again once in this lifetime, and it all came back into what? An eternal moment that I never left. I just dreamed myself away from it. And now I have to realize myself back to it, see. And so that's how to take everything, past, present, and future, and just bring it into one place. You can do that with time, you can do that with the mantra, you can do that with Brahman, because that's all there is. Otherwise, what is it? Shaking of a firebrand. Can hardly wait to get to that part, but I keep getting sidetracked with these other teachings. So, come to know Brahman after studying the scripture. So quickly, because we've taken this before, but when you're talking about Indian scripture, you're talking about Astika Nastika. So what's traditional, classical, and what's non-traditional. The non-traditional is not negative. First thing you have to say about it. Buddhism is Nastika, for instance, because it didn't follow the Upanishads to the letter. When Buddha was living 550 years before Jesus, and he saw India and the state it had fallen into, he said, we can't bring back at this time those old teachings. The priest class has desecrated them already. Religion has already taken a fall. And we know that happened thousands of years earlier because Krishna said so in the Gita. So if that's the state of things right now, and some great soul has to, from his witness consciousness, looking out and in, look at that and say, what's good for them now? What's the best for them now? Probably can't give them a drop of acid right now. They're not ready for that. They'll fall apart. So let's base this on, guess what? There is suffering. The first noble truth. Buddha talked 4 noble truths. That was his main teaching. So, there is suffering. In other words, if you want to be a Buddhist, you have to accept that suffering is in the nature of everything. And how did our Holy Mother put that in this lifetime? suffering in this world has gotten into my very bones, to the marrow of my bones, she said. So you're going to have to use that as your teaching. Through ignoble whips of pain, man is driven towards the infinite, whose beauty alone should draw him. So you should have, even here on this earth, with the body and all of its problems, you should have, you shouldn't need an ignoble whip of pain to know that all this is Brahman. From Brahman all the way down to a blade of grass, it's all Brahman. So that's what to keep in mind. That's your guide, like the sun god is for Sankriti. So with that in mind, then you go to Astika or Nastika. See, Astika means 6 orthodox systems, Shad Darsana. Here's your Vedanta right there. See, Uttara Mimamsa is his fancy name, you might say. Vedavyas was its founder. And when Swamiji came, knew he was coming to the Parliament of Religions here in Chicago in 1893, he thought about the Astika and said, what can I bring them? I'll bring them Vedanta. They're ready for that. They should hear that again. And I'll bring them a little bit of true yoga, because he was prophetic. He knew that we'd take yoga and turn it physical. So he brought us the Ashtanga yoga too. It's Raja Yoga, it's called. You can find it on the shelf of our bookstore here. So then, of course, Vedanta, there's Samkhya of Kapila, which I've been schooling a lot of you in. It's 24 cosmic principles. And there's Yoga of Patanjali, that's Ashtanga, or true yoga. And then there's Purva Mimamsa Nyaya of Gautama. That's not Gautama, Lord Buddha, that's another rishi. And Vaisheshika of Kannada. Those are the 6 orthodox systems in India, of which we've probably only heard of 2 here in the West. And probably only 2 are really prevalent in today's world. The other 4 kind of taking a back seat. But they say that the Uttara Mimamsa is kind of a condensation of all that happened in time. You're getting the quintessential everything when you get to Vedanta. Particularly Neo-Vedanta, we're calling it, of Vivekananda. You're really getting it, you know, a great gift there with it. So as far as, that's a quick Astika look. Quick Nastika look is the non-orthodox systems are Buddhism. Again, it's not a slant or a slur or a negative thing. It's just that it's not based on the Upanishads like these 6 were or are. And Jainism. I mean, my goodness, Jainism has 24 Tirthankaras, like the 24 cosmic principles in human form. But 24 cosmic principles went back before Lord Buddha. You see, because at the time of Lord Buddha, Mahavira had already lived and passed, and he was the 24th of them. So imagine Jainism going back 24 generations prior to Lord Buddha. And what was their main teaching? The Jains. Nonviolence. Extreme nonviolence. Oh, look out for that bug. Don't breathe that microbe. You see? It's like, Paul put masks on so we don't kill anything. So actually, you know, this is a pretty good disease that's come around as far as ahimsa goes. And if you want to mate that up with Jainism, then here's your chance to do that. They ask you, why are you wearing a mask? They're not effective. I'm practicing Jainism, sir. Turn it all positive. So Jainism and basically are the non-orthodox systems, but very, very powerful and pure, all from India, of course. And then you see Shruti and Smriti and Itihasa here, basically. If you want to classify the scriptures, because that's the first sloka, the wise, having studied the Shastras, reflect upon them again and again to help realize Brahman. See? So you're going to have to know that there are some scriptures that absolutely have to be heard, Shruti. That's these Upanishads called the Vedas. There's 4 Vedas, as you know, with 108 Upanishads. They have to be heard and reflected on constantly, again and again. Even the seers do that. And then rolled over in your mind and realized, and then worked back into your life. That's one aspect that Vivekananda brought out. It's just not Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhava, or Shravana, Manana, Nandini, Jasana, but Satchatkara too. You have to bring it back into life, what you know, and share it with others. Not before you've done this, God forbid, because that's what's happening a lot. Get yourself really qualified first, and then share it. So that's pretty much a rundown there. The Smriti is a lot of what you love to read, you see. I mean, the non-dual scriptures of India, what to say, they're just all the fat trimmed off, you see. It's just all essence. Like bubbles in my mind rising, you see, and dissolving. So I have to make sure that anything comes to my mind, anytime I shake the firebrand in a 24-hour period, because you're shaking it at night in dreams too, right? So anytime I shake the firebrand, those are bubbles that are coming up out of my mind. And at the end of the day, I have to dissolve them all, because some of them may persist, as you know. Some thoughts will persist, passions persist, evils will persist, and enjoyments, good vibrations will persist. But we want beyond good and bad, because those are gold and iron chains. They both bind. Gold chain will bind you just as surely as an iron one will. So at the end of each day, you dissolve them all. That's what your practice of meditation is most effective at doing. The best thing for meditation is to see God face to face. But who's going to do that in any given lifetime? So second best would be dissolving the waves of your mind. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Next week we'll look at that. Chitta Vrittis, right? Just waving of a firebrand. And I do it unconsciously all the time. So I start doing it consciously, you see. Right now I'm waving my firebrand in front of all of you around this. This is the only thing that's in my mind, it has been. I was up till 2 or 3 in the morning, you see, thinking about this class. What am I going to say? Oh, Mother, please help me present it in the best possible way. May it drive deep like a pylon into the subconscious mind, you see, and develop in people a thirst for Jnanam. There's nothing better than Jnanam. You say, love? You can't get love until you know what to love. And the God of love himself said that. Who is that? Krishna. Nahi jnanena sadrishyam bhavitram iha vijate. Vijate is wisdom. So it's the best purifier in all the worlds. All the 7 worlds, wisdom's the best. So you're talking about something that's beyond yoga when you talk about Jnanam. And people don't realize that. Shankara and his teachers and teachers' teachers said that. See, if you get to Atmagyan, well, you don't have to practice anymore, anything. So it'd be nice if we could kind of start out with that. You must know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It's that known by everyone. Far East, Middle East, Near East, but not in the West, you see. We're seeking aparavidya at best, secular knowledge. And that's running us in circles. So, point taken then, if you want to go to the Smriti, then you're going to want to look into the Puranas and the Ramayana, Ram's teachings of Ram, and Mahabharata. Inside the Mahabharata, you'll find that teaching. So, as you're talking about the scriptures, basically, then you're talking about this. Kasvam koham kutamayata kame janani kome tata iti paribhavaya sarvam charam vishwam tattva swapna vicharam bhaja govindam mudamate samprapte sanihite kale nahi rakshati dukren karane bhava govindam bhaja govindam Govindam, Bhaja Govindam Mudhamate, Samprapte Sanihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrin Kaladem, Geham Gitam Nama Sahasram, Jayam Shati Rupam Ajashram, Deyam Sajana Sange Chitam, Deyam Dina Jaya Chana Vitam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam Mudhamate, Samprapte Sanihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukarin Karane, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam Mudhamate, Samprapte Sanihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukarin Karane. Bhaja Govindam. As our birthday boy next month, Shankara says about the scriptures. Read the Gita. Recite the Sahasranam, 1,000 names of the Mother and Lord Vishnu. Meditate daily on the form of the Lord of Lakshmi. That's Krishna. Lead the mind always to holy company. And distribute your wealth constantly among the poor for good causes. Adore the Lord, adore the Lord. Adore the Lord, you fool. For when the time of death comes, what good will grammatical rules and regulations do you? What good will conventions do you? Even religious conventions, what good will they do you? And he goes on singing about shaking the firebrand. Who am I? And who are you? Whence have I come from? Who is my mother? Who is my father? Inquire like this every day, leaving aside the entire world, which is comparable to a dream, and thus essenceless. Comparable to a dream. How does Gaudapada put it? Catch your breath right now, because this is straight into non-duality. As the shaking of a firebrand causes it to appear straight or crooked, etc., so too the mental vibration of the mind foists the appearance of perceiver and perceived. When a firebrand is shaken, the appearances do not result from anything other than itself. If the firebrand is kept still, the appearances reside in latent form nowhere else but in it, nor do they enter the firebrand from another area, from outside. These appearances are also not independent of the firebrand, due to having no distinctive substance of their own. Appearances would be just like that with respect to vijnana. That's wisdom or intelligence. And all appearances are the same by nature. In Buddhism you hear that rising and falling, rising and falling. It's like called interdependent arising, praticca samudpata. See, it's just all the mind's doing. It's just shaking the firebrand. That's why Buddhism and Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta and Madhyamika and other forms of Buddhism, Vedanta, are really all saying the same thing about this. They've looked at the mind, they see it's all rising from nowhere else but in itself. Just like the appearances of the firebrand, which are illusory, they're not real, are coming from nowhere else but inside the firebrand itself. Nothing else is causing it. And if you don't understand this, it's called superstitions in religion, in philosophy, misconceptions, Bhranti Darshana. The beautiful religion and philosophy of the world, which is the Divine Mother's gift to everyone, is taken into myth, is taken into superstition. And then you have to spend all your time knocking those down so that people can understand the simple truth. Like it's coming nowhere else than from the mind. And now it's a matter of your will. Shall I shake the mind? Shall I shake my booty? No, don't anymore. Don't shake your booty anymore, please. Never do that again, as they say. I saw you dance. Oh yeah, what'd you think? Never do that again. Appearances are not independent, as they have no distinctive substance to be so. Because of the absence of the relation of cause and effect, they are always incomprehensible. Substance may apparently be the cause of substance, non-substance of non-substance, but the nature of substance is not reasonable in the case of entities. So you can say one thing about phenomena, right? Rising and falling, rising and falling. Okay, let's detach from that. Let's just see where it's coming from. Oh, I see it's in the mind. Who's shaking the mind? You see. Now I'm going to stop. You see. Stop and be still. It's called peace. Leads to samadhi and bliss, so forth and so on. But with regard to entities, that just doesn't apply. An entity is pure conscious awareness. It's the Atman. It's Buddha nature. That's you. See. So you're making this very important distinction in non-duality about the real and the unreal. Nitya, nitya vastu, nitya, anitya vastu viveka. It's one of the great sayings in Vedanta. The nitya is the eternal, anitya is the non-eternal. I must know the nature of both. See? So I'm going to have to make a separation there. Wheat from the chaff, if you want to put it that way, and then draw back and observe them both. Put them back together in the end. I know the real. Is it asat vidyate bhavo nabhavo vidyate sataha, Krishna says in the Gita. Ubiyor api drishintos tu anayos tattva darshibihi. So darshi, I've become the seer of the real and the unreal. I know them both. The seers know them both now. So they know what to detach from, what to attach to, what to detach from, what to attach to, when to shake it, when not, and how to shake it in the best possible way. I mean, so you could do a firebrand, but what if you were a kid, you know, back on 4th of July at night and you were having a sparkler, you started drawing Om signs with it. See? Like I saw the Om sign painted on a big rock in Central Park in New York when I was 21. Walking through Central Park, there's the Om painted on a rock right in the middle of Central Park. And somebody with a white spray, can of spray paint. Talk about the good times of graffiti, right? Didn't last long. So long as there is belief in or obsession in cause and effect, so long will there be a rising of cause and effect. If the mind believes in it, it will be. If it doesn't believe in it anymore, it will cease. That's how powerful the concentrated mind is. When the obsession with worldly life ceases to exist, one will not attach to worldly existence anymore. And when you know the nature of cause and effect, then you'll go to the causeless cause. And this is all important for the slokas coming up in the Upanishad. We're reading from Gaudapada's Karika right now, in case we've got lost already, but basically Gaudapada's Karika is the quintessential non-dual commentary on Mandukya Upanishad, see, which is one of these underlined ones here. And he took that in 12 slokas. It was all there was in it. 12 slokas. He turned it into this masterwork of non-duality all around the word Om. See how important that is. Like I was saying, the in-breath, the held breath, the out-breath. You're just going to watch that. See in a few hundred lifetimes. And, you're still watching it, but you haven't come to any conclusion yet that the in-breath is A, held breath is U, out-breath is M. And then there's no breath at all. Kumbhaka. That's where there's no vibration anymore. Not what to speak of lungs and tongue and ears and all that. No vibration of the shaking of a firebrand in your consciousness, creating some sort of dream for you. Even a cosmic dream, from Lord Brahma to Vishnu to Shiva, all on down. Kind of got beyond that, didn't we? Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the teacher is Brahma, the teacher is Vishnu, the teacher is Shiva, Lord Maheshvara, and Guru Eva Param Brahma. Guru is one. Those three are one. And so I bend a knee, I prostrate before, I salute that singular Guru that exists in all beings and all things as the Word. I think that's what I wanted to read you from that, and it ends up like this. Everything seems to be originated due to empirical existence, and thus not eternal, nor is it subject to dissolution. The true nature of existence is unoriginated and thus has no annihilation. So since it wasn't created, it can't be destroyed. That's what it's saying basically. Since you were never born, you cannot die. See, you're thinking in terms of things that are projected, like the body, from your mother's womb. But you were there witnessing the whole thing. You chose your parents. You decided to take a body. Why have you forgotten that? That was an essential part of the Bardo, his teachings of Buddha, before you actually got caught in the river of time. See? Now your life in the current of time is coming to an end. See? So you'll have to withdraw from current of time again, like Buddha watching the river go by. If you get out of the river and sit on the banks, you'll know what phenomena is. So all these great souls have gone through certain practices and experiences in the full view of lots of souls in different ages, and recorded them down and so forth, so that they could share this with us, so that we could attain that mastery of non-vibration. See, and knowing that to be our essence. Because where do you find teachings of formlessness other than in India? Is anyone else in any religion teaching you or telling you to, your parents, did they ever teach you to run towards formlessness? It's the opposite, isn't it? So this thing you're running away from is the essence. This thing you're running towards is just a mere vibration, has no essence in it, no substance in it. Why are you seeking it? Why are you grasping it? Why this selfish grasping? If you do seek it at all, seek it as something that is a projection of your own mind. You're just playing with yourself. See? You're just playing with yourself. And pretty soon, recess is over, and a mother calls you home at night. It gets dark, you go home. So then you leave off playing, and you value all the more that steadiness, evenness of mind, where no vibration can penetrate. So, ending with this, because non-origination is the essential word in English, call it ajati in Sanskrit. It's the essential word to everything in non-duality. And people talk about non-duality rather glibly now here in the West, but they never talk about ajati or aparinama, non-transformation and non-origination. I remember my teacher once saying, science thinks that things are getting that matter can be destroyed. Some scientists say matter cannot be destroyed, but the true truth about matter is it can neither be destroyed nor not destroyed. It's unoriginated. So that almost knocked me off the bench at the ashram when I heard that one day coming from his mouth. That we're thinking in terms of change, we're thinking in terms of dualities, this and that being real and so forth. But the whole thing is nothing. Sri Ramakrishna told a story about these thieves that were robbing this farmer's garden. And so he got tired of that, so he put up a scarecrow. They come at night, so winds blowing the clothes and so forth. So the thieves, dacoits with masks, by the way, the thieves came and they could see this moving figure in the garden, and they were like put off, But the leader of the thieves was kind of bold, you see, so he snuck closer, he was looking at it. Pretty soon he saw that it didn't move, very when the wind wasn't blowing. So he could get into the garden, he grabbed the scarecrow and he tossed it on the ground. And he cried out to his friends, "Come on, come, it is nothing, it is nothing." So that's how you take something illusory and just cast it to the ground. Don't believe in it anymore. It's a superstition. Have the chutzpah, have the vital energy, have the boldness to be able to cast it to the ground and live in the truth. Telling a story about a scarecrow and a farmer and some thieves, all for that one point, because that's the central pole of non-duality there you're talking about, is that everything's been foisted by the mind and you're believing in it. And this is called life, accompanied with death. And this is why Christ talked about eternal life. His main teaching was around eternal life, not around birth and life and death. So this is what you focus in on all of a sudden. And when you see it, it reminds me of my pet rooster when I was a kid. If you put its beak on a dot in the ground, it froze, you see. You could shout at it, everything. And it would just stay there, it's like frozen on the dot in the ground. Just put its beak on this dot on the ground. Just stay there. You wave at it. Its eyes would kind of go like this and see that dot focus in. So later on I thought, wow, that's concentration, you see. So we all have to find that, quit the vibrating and find this one vibrationless point, focus on it, and then just stay there, ever, forever. So this is why non-origination and teachings like that have a great power of convincing us. And it's what the very first sloka talks about. They study the scriptures like that, with that kind of focus. And then they come to know about Brahman, and then they abandon all the waving of the firebrand. Very first sloka of the Amrita-Nada Upanishad. And I took it a whole hour and a half just to open up to that. We'll go on with more after the break. Okay.